Basically, brisket on the bone. This is the best bite in barbecue, a beef rib. It's hard to beat. So what I'm gonna do is prep it, which is gonna be trimming all that fat off the top, because all that fat removed on the top side will equal bark. And then I'll leave the membrane on the bottom. On beef ribs, I leave the membrane on because these will get really tender and those bones will want to fall out. And so, yeah, so we're just gonna shave all this off, expose that meat, and then we're gonna smoke this for hours, and you'll see the end result. So let's go. All right, this is where I'm gonna take a 7-inch fillet knife, semi-flex, allows you to really work your way through this meat. So taking off the fat and the silver skin on the meat side, because that's where your bark's gonna develop. So if that fat was on there, you wouldn't really get that bark that you're looking for. So remove all that, expose that meat, go for maximum flavor. Find a, semi-coarse seasoning, because that's gonna lead to building your bark. So here we go, hit it nice and heavy, let that sweat out for about 30 minutes. Add your meter probe to the most center core of it to track that internal temp. So it's gonna go about 6 or 7 hours at 225 degrees super smoke on my Traeger Ironwood. This is about 2 hours later, just kind of keeping an eye on it. You can see the moisture starting to come out. Eventually you're gonna start seeing that meat shrink up and those bones pop. And so this is about 6 hours later. And as you can see there, it's almost time to wrap. I'm gonna take this to about 175. I usually go off of how my bark looks before I wrap it. And so this is about 6 hours later at 175 internal, and the bark is looking good. Now you just wanna wrap it. I'm gonna relocate that meter probe to the bone side so it doesn't poke through that butcher paper. And on this cook, I'm going with butcher paper. Sometimes I go with foil. You can do either. But I'm gonna pour about a cup of beef tallow on top of the ribs just to add more flavor and just kind of keep it moist during the wrap. And so when you're using butcher paper, you want to make sure it's very tight, like your Christmas present, to start rolling and tucking, and make sure that's tight and put it back on the Traeger. I'll go 275 degrees, so 225 during the smoke, 275 during the wrap, because you're not going to really develop any more smoke, so you can really speed up the cook and rest it for about an hour. It's about an 8 or 9 hour cook total. So this is after the rest. We're gonna open that Christmas present like you see here, and this is where you see all that pullback on the bone, the tender meat. Pull that probe out. This finished at about 201 degrees, which was the probe tender. That probe tender will vary from, say, 198 to 205. You always want to go off of the probe tender, not the finished number, but you can reference it. So you can see how tender and juicy these beef ribs are. It cuts just like a brisket. Those bones will fall right out. And I'll really slice this just like a brisket. You'll see it lay over perfectly. Smoke ring, bark, tender, beef rib, best bite in barbecue. These were insane. Here we go, don't mind the flies. They are in and out of this video, but you smoke your beef short ribs, dino ribs, beef plate ribs, whatever you want to call them. It's just like a brisket, slices like a brisket, eats like a brisket. Just want that probe tender. These ended up pulling off at like 201 degrees, but that'll vary. It could be 205, it could be 198. Just depends on the quality of the beef, but smoke it, wrap it, just like you would a brisket. So that final taste test. These flies want it, but man, there we go.